digitaljamsessions.com. Hello, welcome to this Digital Jam session. Today we are joined by Sanj from Elysian, who's back again.
Hey.
And
Ben
from where?
Well, I host Officially Amazing on CBBC and Match of the Day Kickabout on CBBC. So mainly CBBC, I suppose.
Mostly from CBBC's. And Zenny from Warner Brothers. Wonderful. Thank you for joining us, guys.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
So we were talking very briefly about VR because I've just thrust a VR headset onto your head and made you experience that experience. So you've all now experienced VR. And we were just talking about the fact that the New York Times has recently decided to release, or distribute rather, a million headsets in order to try and really get VR into the consciousness of the American public. Because, you know, a lot of people are putting their money behind VR. There's a lot of belief that VR is the next generation for entertainment. So I'm curious from your perspective, Sanj, because you really do work in this arena of technology and it's your thing. I've heard said very recently by certain experts in the VR arena that actually VR will facilitate the next generation of technology, but it will actually be AR that will become the mainstream tech. What's your thoughts on that?
Do you know what? It's predicting the future is one of those kind of questions that we get asked like a lot. And the issue I think we're having to deal with is there is this kind of hunger for people to be, people associate themselves with the next best thing, whether it's Google Glass, whether it's VR, whether it's AR, etc. For me, you know, I think everyone understands the benefits of VR. Everyone understands the benefits of AR. Whether one's going to beat the other to, you know, be the future, I don't know. But what I do know is that they both have very powerful merits and very powerful benefits. And I think we're just, everyone at the moment is investing in it because it's a new form of artistic expression and it's a new kind of journey and it's a new platform. Whether it will take over, I don't know, but it's definitely something that's going to be part of, you know, the way we experience media, you know, in the future.
Okay, so having just put on the headset and experienced a slightly different immersive experience, what's your thoughts on this? Because obviously one of the things that we all observed as you were putting that headset on and experiencing it is that obviously it's a very insular experience for you. And you know, although you was commentating and kind of commenting on what you were seeing, we couldn't see what you were necessarily seeing. Instead, we were very much just observing you. So in the context of AR versus VR, obviously AR is one of those things that can be inclusive because everybody in the room can see what's happening with augmented reality versus, you know, virtual reality where you're very much in that black box, you're in that, you know, enclosed space. So what do you think in terms of your preference and what you think will be the future of this tech?
I think I'm a really bad person to ask for future predictions. I don't even know what I'm going to have for dinner. So I cannot tell you with any certainty where this technology is going to go, what's going to succeed and what's not. And I think actually, if you speak to a lot of futurologists, as far as I can tell, more often than not, they get it as wrong as the rest of us. So I think it's a really inexact science to pretend that any of us know exactly where this is going. Also, I should probably point out, because this is an audio podcast, I dress like a man from the 1940s. So again, perhaps I'm not quite the target audience for...
You look cool.
Yeah, well...
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, you should be proud.
Well, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I love it. But I'm just saying that perhaps I'm not best placed to predict future trends because I more look towards the past. Having said that, I've got an iPhone because, you know, I'm a normal person and I need to have technology to hand as well. I think when it comes to VR versus AR, I've experienced VR a lot more, primarily in the last week, than I have AR. I'm sort of familiar with how AR works and I can understand why that might seem at least to be the more attractive option because it allows you to still inhabit the world in which you're in, just enhance it in certain ways. But I think as humans, we all seek escapism. We all want to be taken to something new and different. And I think virtual reality can help to do that. And, you know, I don't think it's any coincidence that the biggest rise, as far as I can see, in technology over the last 20 or 30 years has been towards the personal. It's no coincidence that all technology seems to have the prefix I rather than us. It's not the us pod, it's the iPod. And I think so virtual reality probably panders to that need more than augmented reality. So perhaps on that logic, it will do better.
Okay. What about you, Sunny? What's your thoughts on this?
Well, I'm sort of between both opinions, really. I sort of agree that it's an immersive experience. It's quite a personal experience with VR, whereas AR is quite sort of open for sort of more people to view it in one experience. I think they're both equally they have equal opportunities for creativity, and coming from a creative background, like there's lots of things you could try with, but either or merge them together and try and find, there's so many possibilities to create something special for each individual person or as a group. So I think it depends on so many different factors, and as long as you can expand your creativity to both of those spaces, there's no reason for either or to be more or less than anything. So it's how you utilize them.
Typically, it's a diplomatic, as you usually are.
I think it's just because everything has potential, and I think it's how the case study is how you need to set a precedent, and then you need to expand on that precedent, and then you just keep exploring. I think going back to those concepts of humanity and the desire to keep pushing for something different and something new, and everything is always going to be a big hit for a time, and then it will kind of move on to its next stage, and then something else will come in. So I think it's exciting, it's innovative, there's so many opportunities out there. It's exciting to see what could happen. And I think like I say, with futurology and all the predictions, but I don't know. I think it's how you utilize them. And that's just what, for me, it's quite exciting to see.
I want to go back to something that was mentioned there about being kind of normal means having an iPhone or having a smartphone of some sort. And I'm curious and kind of interested to dig into that a little bit, because I know that, Sanj, you're very interested in kind of, designing for the human-centric experience, and also just kind of the humanity element of technology. And I find it really interesting that we've got to this stage now in civilization where actually it's considered as normal for us to have emotional responses and empathetic responses to what is essentially a piece of technology. That if we were to say to somebody, hey, you know what, I'm going to give you my mobile phone, you can unlock it, you can have a rummage around in all my stuff on my phone. And most people would immediately start to feel a certain degree of tension or uncertainty, or maybe even a little bit violated by the fact that you're getting to rummage around in, their phone. And it's interesting that we've applied such a personal emotion to what is essentially a piece of technology. And I'm curious what you kind of experience with the work that you're doing in terms of that personalization, that emotion that people are applying to technology.
Yeah, well, it's a very interesting anthropological question to kind of talk about in this current era, and it's something that's the answer is kind of metamorphosed dramatically, like in the last 5 minutes, in the last year, in the last 10 years. I guess for me it's really exciting. It's really exciting that there are people that feel that this new digital age that we're all venturing into is quite frightening. They're frightened by it. People know what you're thinking about, what you're looking at, what you're spending your money on, where you're going, who you're talking to, what you're talking about, and that is quite scary. But that's the kind of from my point of view, anyway, well, from my thoughts, is that's the kind of natural way of humanity. It's all about opportunity, and there's so many. There's such a huge opportunistic instinct within business, within how people move forward and evolve. However, I also find it very it's very cold. It's very the fact that people are more interested in what's going on the web and what people are talking about on the web, as opposed to having a conversation or just going to a bar and talking. And there is an issue with that, and there is a problem, and that needs to change. Whether it will change or not, I don't know. But it's an exciting time for the evolution of humanity, definitely.
I'm curious to actually hear the views of kind of everybody here actually on the notion of this kind of digital native. So you're talking about the fact that it's kind of changing humanity on kind of a very fundamental basis. And we talk about digital natives in the kind of context of young children now are being literally trained into how to, program and interact with technology from literally, 2 years old and under in some cases. Some of the first technology that kids are getting their hands on nowadays is an iPad, or an iPhone to play with, and almost like, the digital babysitter, if you like. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are in terms of the impact on society, because one kind of school of thought is this notion that actually we're learning how to be dependent on technology. So we're having a learned helplessness. So kids of this generation won't understand how to get out there and find information for themselves and do things for themselves, because they will be so dependent on the technology to tell them how it's done, to just Google it or to just, search for that information somewhere digitally. So what happens when, things go down and you don't have that anymore. It's like right now at this moment in time, if somebody with their mobile phone, suddenly the battery dies, you don't have maps, you can't call people, you can't get access to your emails, and suddenly we feel really cut off. How much worse is that for this generation who's being kind of automatically kind of inducted into digital interaction right from the word go? I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on this, because there are two schools of thought in terms of whether it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, sorry to jump in again. You know, it is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. And there are many reasons why it's a good thing and why it's a bad thing. One thing I just wanted to highlight is right now, people are very acceptant of new technologies, which is something that maybe 5 years ago wasn't the case. And a really important kind of factor in that, and something that I wanted to highlight, is Apple Pay. Everyone's talking about Apple Pay. Everyone wants Apple Pay. You know, they're paying with their watch, they're paying with their phone, and that's great because it's an opportunity to do something in a very smooth and seamless and quick way. But hypothetically speaking, what if I'm on a train? I pull out my phone. I use my phone to tap in, and then by the time I get to the next stop, the battery on my phone's run out. How do I tap out? What do I do? And no one's talking about that. You know, I don't see iPhone chargers at the tube stations and stuff.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of thing that people aren't discussing. They just see this technology and go, right, I'm gonna get that because everyone's talking about it, everyone's using it. But is it really useful? Is it going to help me? I don't know. Personally, I don't think it will. You know, but
I get frustrated. I'm sure I heard like 3 or 4 years ago about how by this time we should have all become in this zone of universal charging where walls can charge things and just the environment that you're in will charge up your phone. Why are we still reliant on a charger? And we're held ransom by the different technology companies who change their own chargers and don't have interchangeable chargers with other devices. So I think that, that's a massive problem. I actually think if you go back to the basis of the question and talk about our reliance on particularly phones now and personal technology like that, which is portable, which technology has never really been before, apart from perhaps the digital watch. Personal technology, as far as I can tell, and I'm sure there's examples that will disprove this, but have really advanced in the last few years. So it's been a very steep learning curve for myself and for every generation that's been a part of it. You know, my mum and dad in their late 50s are as conversant on an iPad as my nieces, who are 5 and 2. In fact, my nieces will not look at an analog photo, a genuine photographic print now, without trying to zoom in on it. You know, that's how they think photography works, which makes complete sense. If you're only used to doing that, why shouldn't those photos be able to be manipulated in the way that the iPad can? It doesn't feel intuitive otherwise. So I think there's not necessarily anything odd about kids being sort of indoctrinated in a way, sort of technologically spoilt in that way. It's just the way, you know, we give them technology now because it is designed to be able to be used by young children as it is by older adults and everyone in between. I think it has had negative impacts on people's lives and positive, but unfortunately we live in an age where increasingly you can't do without these things. I'm a performer. If I wasn't able to be in contact throughout the day via email or phone with people who wanted to book me for work or my agent, it would severely impair my work opportunities and later down the line could force me out of a job. So I have to have it whether I want it or not. I think the problem is that for most people, rather than have a very separate device sort of independence between your business life and your personal life, most people just have one device. I mean, it's slightly different if you work in a city job and they might give you a BlackBerry because no one buys BlackBerries anymore, but you might have one.
I'm a traditionalist. I like BlackBerry.
Well, yeah. If you want to use it in peace, then that's fine. But I just think when you have an iPhone, which you use for both business and pleasure, as I do, it's both, it's both a business diary and a personal diary. And so that's why it feels indispensable, but also more than just a piece of technology. It feels like something where you've got photographs of your family, as well as business details, as well as your eBay account and voice memos and all the rest of it. It can absolutely, if one thing in life can bring you down, it's that phone. Mm-hmm. So there's no wonder we are all slightly tetchy and paranoid and don't like it to be out of our sight. But then that in itself becomes too much of a crutch, I feel. Mm-hmm. And so, I think it's doing things like affecting people's sleeping patterns. It's the last thing that I do before I go to sleep. Mm-hmm. I'll probably, I'll kiss my girlfriend goodnight and then check my phone. Mm-hmm. I mean, God, it's superseding people relationships sometimes. Oh, just in case I've got an email through, or just in case. And I think that takes something away as well as gives something.
You're in the 70% there of people who would normally check their phone last thing at night. So that's not unusual.
I think I must be a huge kind of like outside of the window of that high percentage, because I find that I think I've been on many occasions without my iPhone. The battery's just gone, and I've been like, oh my God, what do I do? And I find myself being more sociable because I have to then go and find somebody who can help me. And I find that I'm, you have to put yourself out there to be like, right, okay, what would I do in a situation without my phone? And I've always been nervous about depending so heavily on my phone, so I always try and back it up, or I always try and write things down in a paper diary, and then if I lose it, it's like, well, I have some reference of it. And back in the day, you didn't have your phone. If you try and, I remember coming home from school and I'm like, right, I'm finishing school at 3:30, I haven't told anybody that I'm going to be home straight away, so you have to preempt everything. And I think the technology is sort of, while it makes you more efficient in your how you go by your day-to-day business, it's also taken away an element of preemptiveness that you would normally have done. And I think with children, going back to the comments about children as well, it's like, yes, children are given iPads and children are given the phones to pacify them or to train them, but at the same time, it's a responsibility that we have, is that this is it's a subsidy. It's not like the surrogate mother, it's not the surrogate teacher. It should be there to assist you. And I think if you leave the children or the young adults, or and sort of remove yourself from that experience, and then you're giving them that crutch, because you're making them go into that situation where it's like, okay, there you go, that's where you need to do your homework. Whereas when I was growing up, it's like, right, where's dad, or where's mum for something, or so it makes you very insular. And I think there is a responsibility from parents, from how you propose it to people. And I know my niece is 2.5 and she does the same thing with the photographs, but then I don't know, maybe I'm one of those small windows people that do it, but I'll sort of sit with her and be like, right, okay, this is the iPad and this is the original. And I'm trying to explain to a 2.5-year-old child who understands the iPad about an original photograph. But it's a process for them. And I think that's how you need to that's a suggestion to marry it together, so that it doesn't become so much of a crutch for them. So it depends. It's like you say, Karen, if you don't take that into consideration, then it does completely overtake everything. And then when you are stranded on the train without a phone, you won't think to talk to your neighbour, because nobody trusts their neighbours anymore, because they're on their phones and they're not paying attention to the world outside. And then you sort of take out an experience of entertainment. That's a separate thing, and then your personal reaction and sort of performance of other people and how you interact with people is different. And I think that's the negative and the positive for me. So entertainment and VR and AR and the phone and what you can experience is such an amazingly creative thing, and then it's just so separate. And it's how you you tell yourself to interact with it and how you plan. I don't know. There's so many pros and cons of it, as in anything. I remember thinking, like you were saying about investing all your time in an iPhone. I remember writing a diary and having a lock and key on my diary and putting that under my bed so that nobody would read it, just because it's you're investing your own personal thoughts and self into this device, which back then was just a handwritten one, and now it's like you write your notes on your iPhone. And you wouldn't want somebody to look at your phone. I mean, you've seen there's videos online of couples exchanging their mobiles. Why would you do it? Why would you do it? And the idea is that, well, there you go. It's like, I think this is the best way to break up with you. Just look at my phone. And, there is that, it's a personal thing, and you would feel violated if somebody takes it, which is why it's a good thing and a bad thing. There's pros and cons for everything.
There was a TV show on recently called Safe Word, where celebrities gave their password and then they were allowed to go through their phones, which I think had very mixed results. Apparently Sunita was not happy. Although I don't think Sunita's happy most of the time anyway. One thing I would, sorry to keep going over there, it's something I think about a lot. And I do think that phones, for all the benefits, have also made us a lot worse at some things. Obviously, memory and retention and learning of solid facts is one thing, but you could argue, well, we're never going to be in a situation again where everyone needs to know everything. Everyone's specialising now anyway and becoming more and more niche. One thing that it has made me really bad at, and I was never very good anyway, is punctuality. And you might think, well, hang on, I've got a phone that can tell me exactly how long it takes to get somewhere, exactly what routes, what trains run at what times.
What shortcuts.
Exactly. And yet I'm always late. Why is it? Because a phone allows you to be late. you can text someone when you know you're going to be late and tell them you're going to be late. Yeah. So rather than in the old days, in the analog days when no one had a phone, and I used to say to my dad, when you were meeting your mates to go on a night out and none of you had phones and they didn't turn up, what did you do? And he said, well, I waited like 10 minutes, and if they weren't there, I just walked on. Now people know exactly how late someone's going to be, and I genuinely think that the concept of being punctual has hugely suffered as a result of people being able to make an excuse remotely at any time. I mean, the amount of times you get a text by someone like maybe 3 minutes before you due to meet them saying, I'm going to be late. Yeah. What? I mean, tell me half an hour in advance, not 3 minutes.
Yeah. I always find it fascinating that you can schedule at the Lincoln and I like a video conference call. It's like we're setting it up from, it's a global thing, and it's going to take 10 minutes to have this call, really quick catch-up meeting, engage with everyone, and then to set it up, sometimes it takes 20 minutes. So 15 minutes of a meeting and you're trying to set it up. So I always love how it's kind of there to help you. And then, like you say, it changes another element of your behaviour. So you're sort of offsetting one thing for another. I mean, this isn't all like hating technology. It's got its, like we say, it's got its benefits, and that's kind of how we've acclimatized to it. And it's just how we...
Yeah, and it's really ironic how, this kind of staple of communication actually drives you to be very unsociable. Prime example, I'm sitting at my desk, one of my colleagues sits near me, it's 5 to 10. Instead of saying to me, Sanj, we've got a meeting at 10, she'll email me. So can you be at this meeting? And it's like, and then I'll walk away like at 2 minutes before 10 because I haven't read the email. And then it's like, it's just screwed up everything. When she could have just gone, hey, we've got this meeting,
Yeah, it's a really weird scenario then, isn't it? You'd never, before the days of being able to instantly communicate, you'd never have written a letter to someone who was within earshot.
Post-it note.
Yeah. That's the most passive-aggressive thing that you can do. That's like, if you're eating your housemate's meat, then yes, but otherwise, no.
So in summary, basic communications have suffered.
Yeah, I mean, there's an image somewhere online that I've seen of a blackboard outside a pub saying, we don't have Wi-Fi, just talk to each other.
Yeah.
And that kind of makes you connect with it, because whilst you do use it every day and it's such a big part of your life, you do have to find a way to switch off. And I think not having Wi-Fi in a pub is a great way to start. It's a great baby step to separate the two experiences.
Yeah, one thing I would say, it's, obviously these are things that we've noticed in a grand scale, but it is all about the person.
Exactly.
I would rather pick up the phone and phone someone than send them an email or text them. If there's an issue or you want to talk about something, it's good to just talk to people. And I think that people are starting to forget that, but there are people that actually, no, I'm not going to text you, I'm going to phone you, I'm going to walk over to you and talk to you.
I think from a business sense as well, it's a lot harder to say no to someone when they're speaking to you than it is in an email. So if you want a positive answer, speak to them, make the effort. People will squirm, but they won't be able to say no as often. And I think that's something that can often get forgotten. Yeah.
Okay, well, as with all digital jam sessions, we always ask our lovely guests if they will share with us their social media handle of choice, so that our listeners can follow you, stalk you, figure out what it is you do, etc. and so forth.
I retweet a lot. If they want to follow me, they're welcome to.
But Sanj, since you've been on the show before, would you like to share with us your social media?
Yeah, so you can get me on Sanj Surati, so at SanjSurati.
Wonderful, thank you.
And you can find me on Twitter or Instagram just at Ben Shires, which is SHIRES. I'm active on both.
I'm trying to think if I have an underscore in my Twitter handle. So it's at Xeni, XENI _ Weni, WENI. Yeah, it's my nickname. It's me retweeting mostly. I'm more active on Instagram, but it's the same handle. I wouldn't recommend it. I'll just tweet you guys.
For our listeners, you just missed Lenny's really great embarrassed face as she told us
Yeah.
handle.
It's my nickname.
That's like one of those email addresses you had when you were 15. And it's like, you just haven't got around to changing it. Oh.
Well, it's a personal one, so.
Yeah. It's nice.
Sorry, peeps.
It'd be great if mine was Benny Wenny as well. I really enjoyed
and
that.
then we could be friends and just follow each other.
So, first of all, I just want to say thank you very much for joining us on this digital jam session today. If you enjoy this content and you would like to hear more, please do join us and subscribe, and don't forget to review. And thank you once again for joining us on this digital jam session.
Thank you.
Thanks. It's been great.
Thinking of starting your own podcast? Why not speak to the GL Pro UK team? They handle all of our podcasting service needs. Tell them that Digital Jam Session sent you and you'll get 10% off your first order. Find out more at www.glpro.co.uk. digitaljamsessions.com